Here I will be making a loaf of 2-pound loaf of wheat bread using flour and some fresh ground soft white wheat, using the Vitamix 5200 to grind it and the dry attachment, and then we'll be putting it into a Panasonic SD-YD250 Breadmaker. It makes a up to a 2.5 pound loaf, and I have it set to already start to warm up in the countdown, so I have about a half an hour to make the bread. The first step is to emulsify the old baked on pieces of bread that are stuck in the machine, and so I put a little bit of water, especially down by the shaft, the transmission shaft in the bucket, in the bread pan, and let that sit for a few minutes, and then you can clean it off very quickly. If you let it sit, it will get down at the base of the shaft near the seal, and if it's soft, you can clean it off without abrading the seal and making the seal then take on more and more bread in the seal every time you bake. So it keeps the seal for a little bit longer to do this. Alright, here we use the dry container for the Vitamix. We put in 2 cups, almost 2 cups, 14 ounces of soft white wheat. And then we do the noisy part, which is turn it on and grind it for 1 minute. Next, we want to make sure that we have enough water. So, the recipe calls for 1.5, and I add a little bit more. So we have to the bottom of the meniscus about 1 2/3. Just to make sure. On drier days you can evaporate more, and if you have it resting for a longer period of time, you may need a little bit more, a teaspoon or 2 more. You can zoom out now. Yeah. So I take the flour that we generated with the soft white wheat, and I append it with some all-purpose flour until we have 4 cups. And because it's been dry cut, it comes out to quite a bit more than 4 cups. So I will you'll notice that it actually, when it loses its air, compresses quite a bit. So I don't have it level. But that's about 4 cups. It's a little bit more, and that's okay. Alright, next we're going to fill up the pan. So if you'll come on over here and take a look at what's going on inside the pan. I start with just a little bit more down. There you go, a little bit of flour. We place just enough flour to cover the blade. This allows us to seal off the bottom of the shaft so that it doesn't turn to glue before the operation starts in the machine. So if you have your machine set for a timer so that it will be ready in the morning, you won't develop glue at the bottom of the shaft. Next we will put in all of our dry ingredients, which for white breads you often will use a dry milk. And we have our sugar and our salt. So we'll start with the dry milk. And simply put in 2 tablespoons of dry milk. And I generally put it on the sides. And 2 teaspoons of salt. And the key to your salt is that you do not overdo your salt. So you want to be slightly less than 2 teaspoons. As you can see, I'm underdoing it a little bit. Salt will inhibit the rise. So if you're not getting enough rise out of your bread, it may be because you have too much salt. So next I put in the dry sugar, and I do a combination of brown sugar, 3 tablespoons of brown sugar. A little bit more sugar helps it rise, so you can overdo the sugar a little bit depending on whether you have a sensitivity towards sugar, but most of us like it. And the last dry ingredient, other than the rest of the flour, is the yeast, and that comes at the very end, so we'll do that later. Next we put in our water, and you can preheat your water. I often will run the water in the microwave on high for 30 seconds. So I pour the water around the mountain in the middle so that there's still a patch of dry flour under over the shaft. Now I'll put in the oil, and I always put in my oil before the sugar, before the honey. It's supposed to be 2.5, and I usually fudge it between 2.5 and 2 3/4. That's something you would do a little more for more French style breads. So I do the oil first so that when I pour honey, which is my favorite sugar ingredient, when I put the honey in there, it falls right out of it. It makes it a little easier to clean up, and you make sure you get all of the honey that you intended to put in there. So after that, you put in the rest of your flour. You make sure it's all out of the bottom of your container. There it is. And we make a nice little patch, little space in here for the yeast. And the yeast goes in 2 1/4, between 2 1/4 and 2 1/3. If your yeast is old, you can use a little bit more yeast. But that's it. We're ready to go. We drop it in the machine. Next, we drop it in, and if less than a half an hour has gone by, which it has, less than half an hour has, then it will not have been running yet. So it will continue resting, coming to temperature, and we'll start the cycle. Alright, the process has begun, and there's 3.5 hours left on it. The cycle that we chose was the normal bake cycle for sandwiches. And it's a 4-hour long cycle, and the first half hour I started early and run and mix all the ingredients while it's coming to temperature, and then it starts in about a half an hour into the cycle, which it's done here. And you'll notice that the bread is just starting to form, and you can see it's just trying to get all the ingredients mixed together. And we'll check it in a little bit, maybe 10 minutes, and see where it's at. We're about 10 minutes in. You can see it's looking like a normal lump of dough. It's a little hard to turn. At this point you can add a little bit of water if it looks like it's a little under. It happens to be a very dry day, so it might be a good day to add a little warm water to it. Maybe a teaspoon or